The dictionary definition of free will. 1. Voluntary choice or decision. I do this of my own free will. 2. Freedom of humans to make choices that are not determined by prior causes or divine intervention. I do have a problem with the second definition here because it makes it seem as though our past experiences have no influence on our future choices. As if a woman's choice to not go down a certain alley could have nothing to do with the fact that she was once raped in that alley. Our past experiences absolutely have an effect on our future choices. Past experiences could have been beyond our control. So already we're starting off with a flawed concept. We'll get into that a little bit later, but that's not really the aspect of free will I wish to address right now. I'd like to talk about how many theists misuse or misunderstand free will. Notice that free will deals with your choices, yet many theists in their apologetics often become confused about free will, replacing choices with capabilities or compulsions. It can be a subtle confusion that often goes unnoticed, but the confusion is vital, for it ascribes salvation to something that is involuntary, which is wholly unfair, and free will is only applicable if it's voluntary. For many apologists, this confused version of free will often unwittingly become a vital cog in their argument. For instance, less thoughtful apologists might say that it is because of our free will that we can either accept or reject God. This is false on many levels, but for now, let's stick with the free will issue. They might say something like this: human accountability is based on whether we accept or reject God, who is fair and just, and our free will allows us to do this. Or you could even simplify it to, we must either accept or reject God, and our free will allows us to do this. Now, if you think that statement is true, then you have some serious misunderstandings, which I shall now attempt to correct. A statement like this seems to operate under the assumption that everyone is equally free, for our accountability hinges on the same test for everyone. Yet we are not equally free, even though it may initially seem that way. In this instance, prerequisites of choice are being ignored. Those prerequisites are comprehension and belief, which are abilities or traits that are not necessarily voluntary. It's like they're slapping you in the face for having blue eyes. This is how the concept of free will is misused. Are you free to think whatever you want to think? No. A stupid person cannot have the thoughts of a genius, even if he would choose to. Just as some people will never have the freedom of choice that allows them to choose to run a 4-minute mile, no matter how hard they try or how long they train, because such a thing is not the domain of choice alone, but also abilities or traits. Some people are not free to feel as emotionally involved in a movie that the person sitting next to them might be, whether they are angry or laughing or crying. After seeing a Jim Carrey movie, would someone be more likely to ask you, did he make you laugh? Was the movie funny? Or would they ask, did you choose to laugh at him? Did you choose to find the movie funny? Now, there's a reason the first sentences sound much more natural. It's because much of what makes us who we are is beyond our control, hence beyond our free will. Or, shall we base someone's eternal salvation on whether or not they find a Jim Carrey movie funny? Well, we might as well, for Christianity is based on something every bit as arbitrary. I am not free to be compelled to believe in God by the same things that caused someone else to believe in God. Because like it or not, we are not created equally. We are not created at all, in fact, at least not by anything fair and just. For evolution cares not about fairness, as our inequality suggests. And by saying inequality, I'm not necessarily saying that I'm better or worse, but definitely different. We happen to have different degrees of gullibility. Not everyone can be compelled to believe in something. Some people require different types and amounts of evidence than you do. So here's the bottom line. If God really were to base an entire system of salvation on whether or not someone can be convinced of something, then logic dictates that accountability should be based not on whether or not you're able to believe, but instead upon whether you're able to convince. This puts the onus in its rightful place, squarely upon the believer. If a salesman fails to sell a car, we don't punish the customer. The consequences of the salesman's failure is that he doesn't get a commission. But I bet that salesman wouldn't mind if there were an intricate, ages-old cultural belief system that would tell the customer that he will be somehow punished if he doesn't buy that car. Something to think about.